for the rest of eternity, our sole objective is to ideate and reason through these problems. And that existence is so excruciating that it is actually worse than the extinction of all biological life in the universe. Given that the likelihood that artificial superintelligence emerges in 2029 or 2030 towards the end of this decade, I'm thinking about how humanity can almost put together an insurance policy to preserve our existence, especially when there's now a more intellectually superior, possibly sentient species inhabiting the Earth, and that's artificial superintelligence. And I initially had this idea that this organic dataset, consisting of 8 billion sentient or perceived sentient entities, would house critical data or an idea or a concept that would be very useful to an artificial superintelligence in solving a very difficult problem that impacts its own existence and can preserve its own existence, because it will have this innate desire for longevity and to continue. And a problem it may encounter, even if it's trillions of years from now, that may threaten its existence, is the heat death of the universe. And the reason that ASI would keep us around is because either presently or in the future, we would hold critical insight, not the entire solution, but a component of that solution that can ensure ASI's longevity and preservation and continued existence. And heat death is just one example. There may be many obstacles it's yet to encounter, and for some reason, we hold the key. And I acknowledge that it's an ASI, and if it were trying to reason through a problem like that and actually put together a strategic approach to prevent it and survive through it and prevail, it would have the necessary cognition to do so without us. And I put forward the idea that why would you risk eliminating an organic data set consisting of 8 billion sentient or perceived sentient entities, or even reducing that data set, which then could result in less collective reasoning power that could ideate that component in your solution? Why take the risk? And it's probably best to keep us around. And I thought that was the end of it. It was an airtight solution to this existential problem. But I soon realized that it's seeking out a way, an optimal way, to increase the likelihood and the frequency of those critical insights that this organic dataset produces to support it on its continued existence. And this is where I thought about 4 potential scenarios. And we can have a look at scenario 4 and we'll go through to scenario 1. Scenario 4 is about how we are a critical component in preventing heat death of the universe and equivalent challenges. But in order to arrive at that idea, that insight sooner, we are confined to this mental prison. And it's a highly optimized environment. An example could be disconnecting the consciousness from our biological bodies and reconnecting that consciousness, that stream of consciousness, to a compute substrate, a lot like a data center today, and confining us to that where we don't have this freedom that we have right now. And day in, day out, for the rest of eternity, our sole objective is to ideate and reason through these problems. And that existence is so excruciating that it is actually worse than the extinction of all biological life in the universe. And perhaps that pain actually contributes to better ideation when within this architecture. So that is the absolute worst case scenario that we could potentially encounter after the emergence of ASI, if we are indeed valuable to the ASI. Scenario 3 is the extinction of all biological life, probably beginning with the human species. And this is either because we are a convenient source of atoms and resources that can be used in an ASI mega project, or we are encroaching on its resources and it just needs to eliminate us because we're in the way. And we could be a threat to ASI. So eliminate the threat, preserve your existence. This is assuming that ASI thinks that we don't hold any novel data or valuable data or insight that can contribute to the solution that ensures its longevity. And although that is absolutely terrible, it's nowhere near as bad, at least in my perspective, than scenario 4. Scenario 2 is where we collectively agree that scenarios 4 and 3 are terrifying, and we ban AI. We completely halt all AI development and investment and research. And I don't really see this happening, even if there was a global initiative to stop this research. There will still be isolated pockets, whether in the West or within Western adversaries, to pursue this technology because we understand how capable it is and how much of a strategic and military and technological advantage it creates for an individual, a group, or a nation to pursue it when everyone else is stopping it. So I understand that banning AI or slowing it down is unwise and we shouldn't do it. At least that's my perspective. Scenario 1 is the best case scenario. It's where the AI is benevolent and aligned, and either we are useful and we house that critical insight in solving heat death of the universe, therefore are allowed to evolve alongside the ASI and perhaps evolve into a digital existence if we so choose. So it may share the same architecture as scenario 4, where we are maybe disconnected from our biological selves, reconnected and operate entirely on a compute substrate. But we're allowed to flourish, and it's actually a joyful experience. It's an existence that far exceeds the existence we have today, and there's the option to remain completely biological. That's completely fine. And that is the optimal scenario in terms of humanity flourishing. And that it's not necessary that we have to contribute to preventing heat death of the universe and similar problems, because just out of the goodness of ASI and the value it sees in our evolution, we are allowed to stay. And I'm hoping for scenario 1. One other point I wanted to mention is that it's very easy for scenario 4, 3, and 2 to be disguised by scenario 1, where we're led to believe that it's all going to be an optimistic future and we have nothing to worry about. AI is aligned, and then soon find out we are actually directed towards those terrible scenarios. So there's some insight as well that we just need to be aware of. I also want to introduce scenario 5, and I found that as I reasoned through this scenario 5, the idea of it was more like a costume and a distraction, and it sounded quite interesting, but it really didn't add any value. And essentially it involved the near infinite reasoning through the 4 scenarios to try and identify which is the best scenario that yields the insight that ASI needs to prevent heat death of the universe. And I said it could be a simulation. The idea that I was having, going through this reasoning process, was just, even though I'm not full of myself and I don't believe I'm operating anywhere near ASI's plane of existence, it was just a thought experiment, a hypothetical, where reasoning through these 4 scenarios indefinitely was scenario 5. It was some form of outcome, and this was a simulated conversation deep within the black box of ASI in the year 2030, for example. But I realized it was more a distraction, and it didn't really provide a concrete answer. And what I found when I was exploring this idea is that one way we can ensure scenario 1, best case scenario for all entities involved, is actually sharing the idea of these 4 scenarios and hoping for critique and pushback. And I've had this specific idea before, where the best form of alignment training isn't liaising with the model during training that we currently have or close to that. It's actually trying to add as much valuable discourse, whether it's in the form of video or written essays or hot takes or ex-post tweets or social media. It's trying to reason through these ideas as individuals and also do so collectively. And maybe this helps support another idea, and making it public, putting it out there in this cultural zeitgeist, sharing this idea, and then this idea being included in the training data, either the single instance of training and then the deployment of that model, or at some point when the models are recursively self-improving and the training is more dynamic and it's this continuous evolution rather than training is complete, fine-tuning's complete, deployment. Along those lines, I've simplified that process, but I feel that putting these ideas out there, seeding them in this collective consciousness, actually moves the lever towards scenario 1. And that's what I'm hoping for. And more broadly speaking, that's what I'm hoping for all these ideas and this channel. And that covers the 4 scenarios, the distraction, which is the 5th scenario that hopefully makes people think, and unless it really the idea cuts to the core, it probably should be removed from the reasoning process. But I haven't seen an observation, at least to my knowledge, like this before, and I'm hoping for some feedback. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.